In order to get promoted as an engineer and move up the ladder, you'll most likely need to get involved in business development. You'll need to bring in work for your company. And to do that, you're going to have to get involved in proposal writing, which is something that we as engineers weren't taught in school. We have to deal with clients, prospective clients, marketing team members. It's not an easy task. However, in this week's episode, I have with me Matt Handal. Matt is the author of Proposal Development Secrets, and he is a proposal expert. All he does is focus on helping engineering companies write better proposals. And so in this episode, Matt's going to share some advice that you can use as a working engineer to get better at this process. He's going to teach you how you can work with your marketing team better, how to write better technical approaches. This is a really important skill set because if you can help your company bring in more money, you're going to make more money. You're going to get promoted faster. Let's jump right in with Matt. Before we dive in, we'd like to recognize our sponsor for this episode, PPI, a leader in engineering exam prep for the FE and PE exams. PPI provides expert prep courses and study resources designed to help you pass the FE and PE exams the first time. PPI's live online courses include hours of lectures, problem-solving demonstrations, exam strategy sessions, office hours, and a passing guarantee. Check out PPI today at ppi2pass.com to see all the options available for FE and PE exam prep. Now let's dive into today's episode. All right, now I'd like to welcome our guest onto the podcast for today, Matt Handal. Matt, welcome to the Civil Engineering Podcast.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm excited about it.
So, Matt, before we kind of jump into our topic here, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you located? What do you do on a daily basis?
Sure. So I'm here right outside Philadelphia, sunny Philadelphia. I spend a lot of time with engineers. What I do from day to day standpoint is I help people in the construction industry write and manage winning proposals. So personally, I've submitted proposals in nearly every state, including Hawaii and Alaska. And that includes just about every DOT out there. But I'm probably best known for a website I run called helpeverybodyeveryday.com.
That's interesting. Tell us about the website.
Well, how the website is really about like marketing and business development in the construction industry. And it's kind of some people might think, well, that's a very, very odd name for a website that's about that, right? But how it came about was a friend of mine who worked at a civil engineering firm. Whenever I called him up, we talk about, hey, what are you doing? And he'd always say, I'm just helping everybody every day. Because at the end of the day, in our industry, that's the best marketing you can do, is helping everybody every day.
That's great. No, I love that. I mean, that's why we do the podcast. So
yes.
You're on the right track here. All right. Well, I like that a lot. So Matt, let's jump right in here. You've authored a book called Proposal Development Secrets, Win More, Work Smarter, and Get Home on Time. Talk to us about what led you to writing the book in the first place.
Okay. I was submitting at one point 160 plus proposals a year. That's what I did. I was a prostitute. I smelled of FedEx truck exhaust. And that's because I chased so many FedEx trucks down with a package under my arm. Right. I was walking out of the office at 2 a.m. in the morning. This is on Easter morning, right? That was what I did. So, in time, I met other people who did what I did, and there's thousands of us out there. And as it turned out, their work life made mine look like cakewalk. And eventually, after years and years, I came to a very important realization that there was a problem here. And that's what ultimately eventually led it to that book. I saw a problem in our industry and I really wanted to help people.
And so basically you were working for, I guess, a company in the AEC field. You were doing proposals was your job.
Yes. I was working at an engineering firm. And, a lot of people have the title like marketing. Mine was like business development coordinator at the time. But a lot of the time, these people, their almost full-time job, if not more than full-time, is pumping out proposals. Because that's in our industry, that's how you win business. Nothing is really done until something gets sold.
All right. So let's dive into this process a little bit. I know in speaking with a lot of civil engineering professionals, being a civil engineer myself who practice in consulting, when you get into the proposal process, there's usually parts of it that the engineering or technical professional needs to work on. And there's parts that you need to get the marketing or BD staff involved for. How can an engineer or technical professional work with the marketing staff or other people that help put proposals together? What do you recommend in that process?
Yeah, so I want to step back and just kind of talk big picture here. So you go to college and you get your engineering degree, or you get a job at an engineering firm, and hopefully you move up the ladder. But then there's something you're going to need to do before you become like the senior vice president or the president or maybe the CEO, right? What happens is eventually someone drops an RFP on your desk and says, write a document and win us this $1 million contract. And like, you're like, wait, where was this in engineering class? Where was this in engineering school, right? And we really need to think about how unusual that is for a profession. Like, nobody does that to a dentist or a teacher. Nobody drops a violin on the dentist chair and say, play us a concerto, But yes, that's exactly what we're doing to engineers. And if they want to move up to a certain level, like I saw the one podcast you did with the president or CEO of Urban Engineers. Well, do you think he got that position without winning any work? No, he was building the New York office, right? So that, I would say, is problem number one, is the situation that we put engineers in. Problem number two might be, so you might find problem number two surprising, and it's this: the same exact thing is happening to your marketing staff. I don't care what marketing or English degree they received, but nobody ever taught them how to respond to an RFP. Nobody. So furthermore, you, the civil engineer, you probably received more training on project management than they did, because they got none. And this is a recipe, in my experience, for painful experiences with proposals. Painful. And I think your listeners are going to know what I'm talking about. So that's the problem. Those are the two problems. So, what's the solution? What's my advice? I would say, since we work at engineering firms, engineers are naturally on a higher level than marketers, right? They're on that higher pecking order at the end of the day. But you've got to realize that you're both put into the same boat, right? And this might sound counterintuitive, but you really have to be their advocate. You got to be the marketing, whoever's helping you with this proposal. You actually have to not just do what you need to do within the proposal environment, but you have to be their advocate. You got to help them help you, right? So if that means like advocating for training, that's great. If that means taking them on a site visit so they gain a better understanding of what you do, well, that's great too. That means listening to them when they say, hey, you know what, this is probably not a good use of our time. Well, that's great. That means encouraging them to, hey, take the first stab at the cover letter. Giving them that responsibility, let them, help them move their game up to the next level. That's great. Even if it means them helping them bind a proposal at the end of the day, that's great. You've got to help them help you. And to some respect, you've got to be accountability buddies. You can't be missing deadlines. And I think we'll probably talk about this later, but you can't be missing deadlines. But on the other hand, they can't either. So you got to help each other be accountable. You got to find a way to make that a reality.
That's great. And what I really like about what you said there is, I think a lot of times, I can speak at least for the engineering side of it, you make assumptions that this person in marketing knows everything that they need to do, or they know everything that I do, so they'll be able to spin this into some beautiful proposal to go send out. And I think your point is a really good one, Matt, in that you can't assume anything, and you need to find out from them what they know and what they don't know. And you need to fill in the gaps there, because if it is just one site visit that makes the proposal a winning proposal as opposed to not, then you could say that was certainly worth your time. And so that's going to lead me right into my next question, which is time. We're billable professionals, engineering professionals. And, I know at EMI, we do a lot of corporate training and development. And when we tell someone that you're going to have to go to PM training, the first response I get is, well, I'm billable and I got to get off my billable work and I got to go through training. So what if, how would you respond to an engineering professional that says, I have a lot of billable time. I don't have time for proposals. How can they make the time, or what would you say to them?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, there's a great analogy that someone, Merlin Mann, this guy Merlin Mann had, where he said, think of your time as a box. You have a box and you have these little blocks that you can put in the box. And the box only holds so many, let's say 24 blocks in it, right? And you have time for sleep in there, you have time to eat in there, and you can never add more blocks into this box. You can't really make time per se. You can only change your priorities to move things around. And I think it's a very important question, because I think it happens a lot, especially in this situation many firms find themselves in right now, is that what if you're too billable, right? I was doing a workshop in Austin. I go around and do workshops all over the place. I was doing one in Austin a few years back. And there was a woman who was a marketing staff this happened to be an architecture firm. And she had the typical complaint. For you engineers, the typical proposal complaint is this: we gave this to the technical staff. It had to be done on Thursday. It's now Monday and I don't have it. That's the typical complaint you'll hear from the technical staff, and you'll hear it all across the country. So I asked her a couple questions. I said, well, how did you determine who was going to do this technical approach or whatever? She said, well, we just went around and gave it to whoever was available. Well, how did you determine who was available? Did you look at like projections or timesheets or whatever? No, whoever seemed available, we just gave it to them. Well, how did you determine when it was going to be due? Was it based on like their workload and what they can do? And no, we just told them it was due on Thursday. We needed it by Thursday. Well, of course you didn't get it. Of course you didn't get it in that scenario. If you did that to me, if you came to me and said, hey, I need this by Thursday, and I was working on some other stuff and I had deadlines, I didn't want to get my clients angry. Of course I wasn't going to deliver to you. Right. So that's the problem. You don't want to assume that people understand your commitments and workload. So from the engineering perspective, don't assume that people understand your commitments and workload. If you're not going to, you got to communicate that, right? So it's better for you to raise a red flag when the RFP lands on your desk than raise it the day before the proposal is due, or worse yet, like just not deliver and just assume like, oh, I'll get this done eventually, and know that you'll push it off to past the last minute, right? It goes back to accountability. That's not a good accountability on your part, right? It's okay. It's okay to say, hey, I need help, right? Here, Anthony, I'm going to let you in on a little secret, right? What's in your head as a civil engineer is civil engineering. It's not rocket science, right? So if you sat me down and walked me through, let's say, step by step, your approach to designing a reverse cantilever bridge, I can write that down on a piece of paper. Believe it or not, I could write down what you said on a piece of paper. And in fact, it might actually end up being better than what you would write. And it's probably a lot quicker too. So there's ways at the end of the day. One, you have to be honest with yourself and with other people and communicate. And if the situation is, oh, I can't do it, I don't have the capacity to do it, well, you kind of need to be involved in the effort of finding, okay, what's our other way around of doing this? Is there somebody on the technical staff that can help us? Is there a way that we can do this with the marketing staff? And, I can be involved, but to a lesser extent. And that's if you're busy. There's the other case of like, you just don't feel like doing it, and that kind of goes back to what we were saying before, like, well, okay, that's great. You don't feel like doing it, but if you want to be senior vice president at the end of the day, you got to get good at winning work.
Yeah. And I think that's something definitely to come back to is, all professionals and consulting, at some point in time, if you want to, kind of climb that ladder, become a leader, become a department head, office manager, branch manager, you need to bring in business. I mean, there's no way around it. So the more you delay it and you say, I'm too busy, I got too much billable work, I can't do this, I can't do this, you're just delaying the progression of your career. You could think of it that way if you want to try to get yourself going a little bit. And it's better that you can figure out a way to prioritize, or like Matt said, maybe you could sit down with the marketing team and share some insights to maybe they can take some of that and then run with it a little bit if you're really jammed up. But at the end of the day, from a career standpoint, from career priorities and goals, it's probably the way for you to go if you're going to want to get to those, VP positions. So it is something that you're going to have to do. And, hopefully some of the stuff that, Matt's sharing with us today can make it a little bit easier for you. And I guess that kind of leads into another question I had for you. It sounds like writing proposals is hard work, but how can engineers maybe make their lives easier when they're writing proposals? I mean, it sounds like from your perspective, it's really maybe letting others help you more in some way.
Yeah, that's one way. I mean, I would say that go into your vice president's office and demand that your marketing staff get both proposal management and proposal writing training, right? That would be a good first step.
Right.
It's a bold first step, but I think it would be a good first step. I also think that you should bring someone in to provide some proposal training to the engineers, because, like I was just talking about work, training a large engineering firm. I was out in Missouri a few weeks back, and, we spent the whole day talking about proposal writing. And it's not like, it's not something that you learn in 15 minutes or in a 3-minute kind of blip, if nothing else, training is going to make your life easier. And I know, Anthony, you're a strong believer in training. So I'm speaking to the choir here, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean,
here's important point number 2. There's a difference between what you can do and what you can win. There's a difference between what you can do and what you can win. Engineers have to understand this. You need to go after contracts that you can win, right? So if you don't have some sort of what's known as a go, no go system in place right now, you need to get one in place yesterday. You need to have the ability to say, we have a reasonable chance of winning this. Because a lot of times when you see an RFP, I equate it to like Gollum. It's like, I see that ring in Lord of the Rings, and Gollum wants that ring. But at the, if you can't get your hands on that ring, it's better to go chase a different ring.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I know many engineering companies spend many, many hours on projects that the likelihood of them winning is very small. So that sounds like a really good place to start in terms of saving time and being more efficient for sure. So in your opinion, Matt, what's the biggest mistake found in technical approaches in these proposals?
So a lot of firms send me like proposals to critique. I'll do kind of like a critique after the facts, sometimes even before they submit it. So I've read a lot of technical approaches, right? And I keep coming across the same big problem in these technical approaches. And I lovingly refer to it as the peanut butter and jelly problem. And here's the peanut butter and jelly problem. Let's say I gave you an RFP and it says, describe your methodology and approach to this scope of work. And here's the scope of work. Matt wants a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. What firms typically say is this: we will build you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it's followed by, trust us, it will be great. Well, that's insane, because that approach doesn't include an approach. That approach is 100% devoid of a technical approach. They often provide a scope of work. Scope of work is, it's typically, here's your scope of work and here's a bunch of promises. Wow, we're going to do a swell job, but that's not what they're asking for. A scope of work is what you're going to do, but an approach is, how are you going to do it? Why are you going to do it that way? And what's the benefit? Specifically, what's the benefit to the client? So in my opinion, in my experience, really, that's the common problem I see in technical approaches. And it goes back to this, Nobody ever in engineering school taught you how to write a technical approach. Nobody taught you how to do that. So how are you expected to be able to do that? You just do what somebody else was doing. You might look at another proposal they submitted, which has the peanut butter and jelly problem, you know, and it just goes on and on like a virus.
Right. So everyone's going to promise them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but they want to understand the approach you're going to take in delivering it to them so they can kind of see what you're thinking versus these other competitors.
Exactly. Ultimately, and people ask me the question, you know, if you could put one thing on a billboard, what would that be? And I always say it would be your clients aren't stupid. You know, the people, your clients aren't stupid. You know, I know many of them, and I can tell you, they're just, they're smarter than I am. So they're probably smarter than you are too. So we can't treat our clients like they're stupid. You know, if I can identify that it's simply a promise that you say, oh, I'm going to make you a great peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Trust us, it's going to be swell. Well, your client, if you say that about a highway or a bridge, or your great customer service, like, your clients aren't stupid. They see right through that.
That's great. No, yeah, I agree with you. I think we need to do a better job at, sharing our thought process of how we're approaching things so that people can understand that, and you could have intelligent conversations around that, as opposed to just jumping right to the end point and saying, we're going to give you this great product, but just like everybody else kind of. So let me ask you this question. What is it like to be on an evaluation committee for a civil engineering contract?
Yeah, I could tell you many, many stories about this. And really, at the end of the day, it varies from agency to agency. But one of the things I always do in a proposal workshop that I do, again, all over the place, is I'll get some real proposals to typically submitted to like a DOT or something like that, or some other kind of large agency. And I put people in groups of 6. I give them the scope of work and the proposal, and I say, I'm going to come back in an hour. You tell me who won and why. That is an extremely eye-opening experience. And I suggest every civil engineer do that at least once in their life to see, okay, what is it like evaluating these proposals? Because what you find is that things you think might have thought were important maybe aren't as important as you think they are. And the things that maybe you didn't spend that much time about are maybe more important than you really think they are. That, again, that is an eye-opening experience. And that, to me, is the best way to get a first-hand look at, okay, how would I make a decision if I was on the selection committee?
Yeah, that's a good point. I do know a lot of civil engineers that have had the chance to maybe represent a municipality, and they get to look over different quotes. And, I can only imagine that would help them themselves in, preparing proposals in the future for sure.
Yeah, so a lot of these states have like sunshine laws where you can kind of, essentially get proposals that were submitted, because once you submit them, they're like the property of the state.
Right. You can like foil them.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's typically how I get them. I mean, there's like Florida DOT has a whole FTP site, if you know where to look, that has all the proposals. Wow. City of Miami, you can go in and listen to shortlist interviews. So if you do enough searching, you know where to look, you could find a lot of great material for a proposal experiment like that. That's
great. So Matt, do you have any final advice with regard to proposal writing for civil engineers out there?
Yeah, I would say listen to this podcast twice, because I think there's probably a lot of good information here. Feel free to email me at matt@helpeverybodyeveryday.com, because like I love talking about proposals. I'm happy to answer any question or provide whatever advice I can. I'm weird like that. I like to talk about proposals.
All right, so we're not done with Matt yet. We're going to switch gears now. We're going to come back in a minute. We're just going to finish up with a couple of career questions on the civil engineering hot seat. So we'll be right back. All right, we are back with Matt Handal, author of Proposal Development Secrets, Win More, Work Smarter, and Get Home on Time. All right, Matt, are you ready for the civil engineering hot seat?
Yeah, I'm in the hot seat. I'm ready to go.
All right, let's go. All right, so first of all, Matt, are there any specific rituals that you practice every day? Do you have a morning routine or a lunchtime routine or just something that you do consistently every day that has contributed to your success?
Okay. I thought about this, and oddly, I have no rituals, zero rituals. There may even be days that I don't even check my email. I'm actually too ADD for daily rituals. But what benefits me in my life are what I like to call mental frameworks. So for example, if there's a thing to be done, I'll ask, what does done look like? What does done look like in this scenario? And then once I know that, what's the next physical action I need to get closer to done? Right. For me, it's about mental frameworks, whether it's in proposals or life. I think mental frameworks and formulas are key for me.
Okay, that's great. Awesome. All right, so Matt, is there one book that you might recommend to engineers or just a book in general that you found to be extremely helpful for you in your professional or your personal development? And I know there's lots of books out there, but does one jump out to you?
Yeah, I thought there's lots of them, obviously, and I go back. I think the books that have most impacted me are the ones that I've read multiple times. Right? And this one here is called The Magic of Winning Proposals. It's from Laura Ricci, who's now retired. But this was actually, a lot of the proposal books were written by I used to work at IBM and not from our industry, right? So this is a person who helped develop the system that URS ultimately used. And I know the system is still being used at some of the top engineering firms. It's called The Magic of Winning Proposals. You can buy it at Amazon.com or wherever fine books are sold. And it is actually my favorite book about proposals.
That's great. That's awesome. And I like what you said there. Usually the best books, the most helpful books for one is one that you've read multiple times, right? And you keep going back to it. It's all marked. It's all marked up. All the pages are folded and stuff. Those are the ones that are really, really helpful. So that's a good way to think of it. All right, here's another one for you, Matt. Thinking back on managers that you may have had in the past, if you think about kind of your favorite manager or managers, and you don't need to name anyone specifically, but what was it that made them your favorite? We're just trying to understand, some of the best managers out there. What do they do on a regular basis?
It's a good question, and I'm going to give you an interesting story here. So on July 12th, 2006, a civil engineer in San Diego emailed me asking for the username and password tied to their subscription of Engineering News Record. So, I don't know. I don't think they do this anymore. But Engineering News Record used to have a little label on it or a little sticker, and it had your number on it. And then you can go to the website and register your username and password. So they were in San Diego, and I was in Philadelphia.
This was
so
a colleague.
I responded in an email. And I said, well, I have no idea what that would be. Can't you folks take the subscription number from your San Diego copy of ENR and register your own user ID? Because we pay for each subscription separately. So here's what I got back, and this is verbatim. Matt, thanks for your chippy attitude. That's just what I needed in my busy life is BS from you. In the future, I suggest you watch how you address your fellow team members, especially those of higher rank. So imagine I was only at this firm for a couple of, maybe it was on my second year. I was sitting at my desk. I was in shock. And my boss walked by and noticed why is Matt just sitting there with the glaze on here? So she looked at my screen. She walked back to her office and picked up the phone. Within 5 minutes, this vice president in San Diego was calling me to apologize. And as far as I'm concerned, my manager at that time, Tracy, she walks on water. And here's the point of this story is that some managers, especially marketing managers, would just walk away and say, "Oh, that guy's a jerk," right? But Tracy had my back, and she went to bat for me. And years later, a recruiter called me up asking me to jump ship, right, and work with this civil engineer we're talking about. And I said, well, I never worked with that guy in a million years. But having that manager that had your back, that was important. I think management is a very important piece of the overall puzzle, because ultimately, especially when it comes to the marketing, it could be pretty, it could be a pretty brutal job, right? And a lot of times your manager is what makes you stay or leave.
Yeah, that's great. No, it's really good to hear that. I think that is an important aspect of, or a trait that managers can have, is really kind of backing up their team members. And I agree with you. It's not easy to do, and a lot of people won't do it, especially in some of the, the corporate atmospheres that we live in today. And so that's a really cool story. All right, I've got one final question, Matt. We call it the civil engineering career elevator advice question. So if you got into an elevator with a civil engineer and you had 30 to 40 seconds with him or her, and you had to give them career advice in that short period of time, what would your advice be?
Okay. Are you going to set the timer for this?
Yeah, started already.
So what I would say is an expert isn't someone with a lot of P's. An expert isn't someone with a number of degrees. An expert is someone who has contributed to the body of knowledge in his or her profession. Let me say that again. An expert is someone who has contributed to the body of knowledge in his or her profession. At the end of the day, you don't know what you know until you write it down. So I suggest that you write it down and share it with your peers.
That's awesome.
Did I make 60 seconds? Did I make it in time?
You made
30
it.
or
You
40
made it
seconds?
just before the elevator door opened. Awesome. All right. So I want to thank Matt Handal. Matt is the author of Proposal Development Secrets, Win More, Work Smarter, and Get Home on Time. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Can you just give our listeners your website there one more time, Matt?
Yeah, it's www.helpeverybodyeveryday.com. If you just Google helpeverybodyeveryday.com, I'm sure I'll come up. And my email is matt@helpeverybodyeveryday.com.
Great. Thanks again for joining us, Matt.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Civil Engineering Podcast on YouTube, produced by the Engineering Management Institute. We're always looking for new ways to help engineers become effective managers and leaders. You can view all of our content on our website at engineeringmanagementinstitute.org, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here for our weekly videos. Until next time, please continue to engineer your own success.